My name is Sloan Barrett, and I'm 34 years old. If you'd seen my life from the outside last Thursday afternoon, you'd probably have thought I was boring in the safest possible way. My rent was paid on time. My utilities were on auto pay. I had a spreadsheet for everything: groceries, subscriptions, even the best days to run the dishwasher, so the electric bill stayed predictable. I used to believe that kind of structure was armor. If I kept my life neat and sensible, the universe would look at me and say, "She's handling things. Let's not mess with her." Until 2:47 a.m., I honestly thought it was working. I'd been with my boyfriend Caleb for 3 years. He's 28, works in marketing, which in practice meant random happy hours and client dinners and networking events that bled into midnight. For a long time, I didn't question it. Work is work, right? People hustle. Sometimes you stay late. Sometimes you get drinks with the team. Besides, he'd never given me a clear, undeniable reason not to trust him. Looking back now, I can see the cracks. They were small at first, easy to plaster over. His phone started living face down on tables. At first, I thought it was just a habit. Then he began taking it with him to the bathroom, even if he was just brushing his teeth. Notifications stopped lighting up the screen. Do not disturb became his default. When I'd joke, "Who are you hiding? A secret family?" he'd roll his eyes and say, "Yeah, Sloan, you caught me. 3 wives, 6 kids, and a pet lizard." It sounded ridiculous enough that I'd laugh and let it go. There were other things. Sudden work emergencies that popped up exactly when we had plans. Dinners with my sister I'd go to alone because he couldn't get away from the client. Nights when he'd come home smelling like cologne that wasn't his, the sharp, unfamiliar scent clinging to his shirt. The guys were messing around with sample bottles, he'd say, dropping his bag by the door. Some new fragrance campaign. I probably got sprayed. Reasonable. Sort of. Just enough of a story to plug into the gap between my suspicion and my desire to keep the peace. I told myself that everyone has phases. People change their routines, get more into fitness, care more about their appearance. It didn't have to mean anything. About 6 weeks ago, though, something in his energy shifted. Caleb was still physically in our apartment, on our couch, in our bed. But it felt like whatever part of him used to lean toward me had started leaning away. He'd come home, flop down next to me while I put on a show, and then sink straight into his phone. He'd laugh, sharp little bursts at messages I couldn't see, and if I asked, "What's so funny?" he would shrug. Group chat, work idiots, you don't want to know. Sometimes it was college friends. Sometimes it was a meme you wouldn't get. Always something that put me on the outside of the joke. I tried once to say, "Hey, can you put your phone down for a bit? I feel like I haven't really talked to you in days." He sighed like I'd asked him to quit his job altogether. "Sloan, this is work. Relationship building. It pays the bills." And the thing is, he wasn't wrong. His commission did pay a lot of our bills. We split everything, but his income could spike with a good month. I didn't want to be the controlling girlfriend who couldn't handle her boyfriend having a life. So I swallowed my discomfort, told myself I trusted him, told myself I should trust him. That's the mature thing, the cool thing. The thing women write about in those self-help threads. Healthy relationships require trust. I ignored the knot in my stomach that tightened a little more each week. Then came the gym phase. Caleb started going 4-5 times a week. He bought new clothes, sleeker ones, had his hair cut more often, got his nails cleaned up because clients noticed details. I was happy for him at first. "You look good," I'd say, watching him adjust a cuff or straighten a shirt. He'd grin at the mirror instead of at me. Gotta stay competitive. But I noticed something strange. The new shirts, the perfectly fitted jeans, the just right cologne, those never came out when we had dinner together, or when we met my friends, or when we visited my parents. With me, it was old hoodies, soft joggers, the t-shirt with a faded logo from a bar he didn't even like. It was like there were 2 versions of him, home Caleb and somewhere else Caleb. And I wasn't invited to wherever the second one lived. Last Thursday night was supposed to be another one of those networking dinners. He emerged from the bedroom in a dark button-down I'd never seen, sleeves rolled just so. A watch I knew he didn't wear to the office because he'd complained it was too flashy. He'd spent nearly an hour getting ready, fussing with his hair, asking if I thought the shirt fit right across the shoulders. "You look nice," I said, forcing a smile, pressing down the feeling that this look wasn't for me. Big potential client, he said, leaning in to kiss my forehead. His lips brushed my skin. His eyes were already on the clock on the wall. Don't wait up, okay? These things run late. How late? The question slipped out before I could catch it. He shrugged. Midnight? 1? Depends how generous they're feeling with the bar tab. I'll text you. Okay, I said, have fun. He gave me a quick smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, grabbed his keys, and left. The door clicked shut and the apartment deflated around me. I made myself a simple dinner, answered a few work emails, finished a spreadsheet that didn't actually need finishing yet, put on a documentary about deep-sea creatures, the kind of thing I could half watch while scrolling through my own phone. Around 11, I texted him, "How's it going?" No response. Midnight came and went. The documentary ended. The quiet in the apartment felt heavier somehow. I checked our shared location on my phone, a habit I'd picked up months ago, one I pretended was about safety, not suspicion. His little dot spun for a second, then froze in a different part of the city than his office, a strip of bars and late-night restaurants. Client dinner, I told myself. People go to bars to close deals. That's normal. At 12:30, I tried calling. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again at 1 a.m., same thing. By 1:30, my eyes were grainy with exhaustion. I told myself his battery probably died, that he was laughing too loudly to notice his phone, that I was catastrophizing. I'd been accused of that before, in another relationship, with a different man. You always assume the worst, Sloan, he'd said back then. It's suffocating. I lay on my back in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to every car that passed on the street outside. Each set of headlights that flickered across my wall, I imagined was his. Every door slam echoed like a possible key in our lock. Nothing. At 2:47 a.m., my phone rang. The sound sliced through the silence so sharply that my heart jumped. I grabbed it off the nightstand, saw his name on the screen, and a wave of relief washed over me so fast I almost laughed. I answered. Caleb? His voice came through, loud and frayed at the edges. I need money, right now. The words tangled together, slurred just enough that I knew he was drunk. In the background, I could hear traffic, laughter, music bleeding from somewhere. I sat up. Are you okay? Where are you? My rideshare account is locked, he snapped. Some payment issue. I need to get home, and I need $300 for a cab. Just send it. 300? I blinked. Where are you that a cab is $300? That's not important. Just send it, Sloan. It is important, I said, a thread of steel slipping into my voice. How did you get all the way out there if your app wasn't working? Someone dropped me off, he said. Now I'm stuck. Please stop interrogating me and just help me. Who dropped you off? Oh my God, does it matter? His voice rose, sharp, impatient. I'm standing on a sidewalk in the middle of the night. I need help. Send the money. The knot in my stomach, the one I'd been ignoring for weeks, finally stopped pretending to be anything other than what it was. I pictured him. The new shirt, the carefully chosen cologne, the way he'd checked himself in the mirror, the location pin that wasn't anywhere near a restaurant on his company's list, the missing texts, the silence, the straight-to-voicemail calls. I took a breath and something inside me clicked into place. Ask the girl you went out with, I said quietly. There was a beat of total silence. Even the street noise seemed to fade. What? He said. You heard me, I repeated. Ask whoever you were actually with tonight to give you a ride home, or to lend you the money. I was at a work dinner, he snapped. You're being paranoid. And you're being dishonest, I said. Figure it out, Caleb. Are you seriously going to leave me stranded? His voice cracked between outrage and panic. You're unbelievable. You're not stranded, I said. You're with someone. Get them to drive you. You're such a... I didn't let him finish. My thumb moved on its own. I hung up. Then I flipped my phone to silent, set it face down on the nightstand, and lay back in bed. For the first time in weeks, my mind didn't spin in frantic circles. It just went quiet. I knew there would be fallout in the morning. Explanations, excuses, maybe tears. I knew there was probably more I didn't know, didn't see, a whole side of his life I'd been kept out of. But as my eyes drifted shut, one thought settled in my chest like a small, steady stone. I'm done being his safety net. And somehow, that felt safer than anything had in a long time. My alarm went off at 6:30 a.m., dragging me out of a sleep so deep it felt like I'd been underwater. For a second, I didn't remember the call. Then my eyes landed on my phone on the nightstand, face down, and it came back in a rush. The sidewalk noise, Caleb's slurred voice, the demand for money, my own words. Ask the girl you went out with. My stomach tightened, but my hand was steady when I reached for the phone. 17 missed calls from Caleb, 20-something text messages in a scattered, desperate trail. They started off sharp and indignant. Are you kidding me? You really hung up on me? Send the money. Then they shifted. I'm freezing. Answer your phone. Sloan, stop being dramatic. Then, please, I'm stuck. I need you. Why are you doing this? You're abandoning me right now. By the end, the messages were a slurry of accusations and guilt. You're cruel. You like watching me suffer, don't you? After everything I've done for you. I scrolled, waiting for something that felt like truth. It was all performance. Every sentence was about what I owed him, what I should be doing for him, what a monster I was for not paying up. There was one notification I hadn't checked yet. Voicemail, unknown number, 4:18 a.m. My thumb hovered over it for a second. Some small, panicked part of me whispered, what if it's a hospital? What if something awful happened? I hit play. Hi. Hey, I'm sorry, this is probably weird. The voice was female, mid-20s, bright but edged with discomfort. In the background, I heard the muffled hum of a car. My name's Brianna. Your number is saved in Caleb's phone as Sloan Home, and he asked me to call you earlier, but it kept going to voicemail. I didn't want to keep blowing up your phone, but I'm parked outside what he says is his apartment building, and I just want to make sure he actually lives here before I leave. My heartbeat slowed and sharpened at the same time. He's pretty drunk, she continued. Like, really drunk. I drove him here because his rideshare account wasn't working, and he tried to call you a bunch of times, but it sounds like you have your phone on silent. He said it's apartment 4C. Is that right? If you get this, can you just text or call back to confirm? I don't feel comfortable just dropping him off if this isn't where he lives. The message ended. The automated voice chimed in, asking if I wanted to replay it. I did. Twice. My hands were cold by the time I pulled up the call log and hit return call. She answered on the first ring. Hello? She said. There was a hesitant lilt, like she was braced for someone to yell at her. Hi, I said. This is Sloan. You left me a voicemail about Caleb. Relief rushed into her voice. Oh, thank God. Yeah, sorry. I was really hoping I didn't just drop some random guy at a stranger's building. Did you get him inside? I swallowed. Is he there now? Yeah. I mean, he was when I left him. He could barely stand up, but he insisted he was fine. I got him to the door and watched him go in. She exhaled. I guess I wanted to make sure I didn't just abandon him somewhere. Our place. I almost said it aloud. That's our apartment, I said instead. We live together. There was a pause, so full of things that it almost buzzed. Oh, she said finally. He didn't say that. Of course he didn't. What did he say? I asked quietly. That he lives alone. Her tone shifted, defensive now, but not at me. We matched on an app a few weeks ago. He told me he was single. We went out once last week, and tonight was supposed to be our second date. My vision tunneled for a second. Second date. A few weeks. Work dinners. Client events. He told you he was single, I repeated, because sometimes you have to hear the words twice before they really land. Yeah. She sounded genuinely miserable. Look, if I'd known he was in a relationship, I never would have... I don't do that. I thought he was just one of those guys who works too much and doesn't have time to date. What happened tonight? I asked. She hesitated, and I could almost hear her deciding how much to reveal. We had dinner. He was charming, normal, whatever. Then he wanted to go to this bar across town. I drove because he'd already had a couple of drinks. That tracked. Caleb liked when women drove him. It made him feel taken care of. He kept drinking at the bar, she said, and that's when things got weird. How? He started talking about you, she said. At first he said my roommate, and then he'd mess up and say my girlfriend, and get really flustered, like he forgot which story he was telling. I started asking questions, and he got defensive, said it was complicated, that you two were basically over, that you were controlling and didn't understand his career. I closed my eyes. Controlling. Classic. I realized I didn't want to be there, she went on, so I told him I'd drive him home, but that we shouldn't see each other again. He got upset. Tried to order a ride, but his account was locked, and then he started blowing up at you on my phone when you didn't send him money. My jaw clenched. For what it's worth, she added. The way he talked about you, it didn't match what I was seeing. You hanging up on him? It didn't sound abusive. It sounded like someone who was done being used. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You read that right. I'm really sorry, she said softly. If I'd known, I would have blocked him from the start. I feel like I helped him cheat, and that makes me feel sick. You didn't know, I said. He did. That's on him, not you. Silence stretched between us, shared and strange. Two women on either side of a mess neither of us had created, both of us standing in it anyway. "Thank you for making sure he got home safe," I said eventually. "No problem," she hesitated. "And, for what it's worth, you deserve someone who doesn't need a backup plan." We hung up. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long minute, phone in my hand, the room spinning just slightly with the weight of all the new information. Second date, dating app. Told her he lived alone, told her I was controlling, told me he was at a work dinner. It was like finding a hidden door in your own apartment and realizing someone had been living there the whole time without you knowing. Finally, I got up and walked out to the living room. Caleb was sprawled on the couch, still in the dark shirt and nice jeans, one shoe on, the other half off his foot. His hair was smashed on one side, makeup from some woman's hands smudged faintly on his collar. His mouth hung open. He snored softly. On the coffee table, his phone lay dead next to a half-empty glass of water. A pair of keys I didn't recognize rested beside it, Brianna's maybe, or the bar's. Some leftover piece of the night that hadn't been properly put away. I stood there, looking at him, at his carefully chosen outfit, at the way he'd gone out of his way to be the best version of himself for someone else. For me, lately, he couldn't even be bothered to answer texts on time. I made coffee, the normal way, measured grounds, filtered water, the slow drip filling the carafe. The act felt absurdly domestic, like I was playing it normal while the truth sat unconscious on my sofa. Mug in hand, I went to my desk, opened my laptop, and logged into our shared cloud storage. We'd set it up a year ago when things still felt simple. "So we can both save our photos," he'd said. "Memories, you know?" I clicked into his folder. The last few months were a mosaic of a life I didn't recognize. Caleb at restaurants I'd never been to. Caleb in dim lighting with neon signs behind him. Caleb in that new shirt, and another one, and another. Outfits that had never once appeared on our date nights. Selfies with captions like "grinding for the future" and "living my best life" and "work hard, play harder." In some photos, I caught partial glimpses of other people, an arm with painted nails, the edge of a dress, the blurred shape of a woman's face turned away at the last second, cropped carefully enough that he could plausibly deny anything if I'd stumbled on them earlier. My chest ached, not because I was seeing something I hadn't suspected, but because I was finally letting myself admit it. He'd been building another life in parallel to the one we shared. Layer by layer, decision by decision, app download by app download. He hadn't tripped and fallen into someone else's arms. He'd walked there. From the couch, he groaned, shifting positions. The sound snapped me back into the room. He was going to wake up soon. He'd stumble to the kitchen, clutch his head, ask for water. He'd test the waters with a joke, or a lie, or a half-truth. He'd hope I was still the woman who didn't want to ruin a Thursday with a fight. I closed the laptop. Whatever happened next, one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let him decide the story. This time I was going to tell the truth. To him, to myself. He shifted again, eyelids fluttering, and I took a slow sip of coffee, waiting. He woke around 9 o'clock a.m., groaning like the sun itself had wronged him. I didn't move. I sat at the dining table with my coffee, watching him slowly piece together where he was, who he was, and what kind of wreckage he'd left behind. His eyes finally found me. "Water," he croaked. I pointed toward the kitchen. I didn't soften my face. I didn't move to help. He dragged himself upright, staggered to the sink, and refilled the glass someone else had given him. Probably Brianna. The irony wasn't lost on me. When he turned around, he seemed to register something in my posture. Stillness instead of worry. Calm instead of panic. "What?" he said, defensive already. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I set my mug down. "You were on a date." His face went blank. Not guilty, blank. Like a computer rebooting. "What?" "The girl. The one who drove you home. The one you told you were single." I kept my voice even, steady. She left me a voicemail. Color drained from his face so quickly it was almost impressive. I can explain." "I'm sure you can," I said, "but I'm not interested." That rattled him. He blinked. "Sloan, come on, you're blowing this way out of proportion." "Oh?" I tilted my head. "So last night wasn't your second date with her?" His shoulders stiffened, a micro-flinch. There it was, the truth, slipping out in body language even if he tried to bury it with words. "We just got coffee last week," he said. "It wasn't serious." "You've been on 2 dates with someone while living with me. You lied to her about being single. You lied to me about where you were. How is that not serious? It wasn't like that, he insisted. I was just curious. Curious. As if curiosity was an acceptable explanation for climbing into someone else's car, laughing at someone else's jokes, wearing cologne for someone else, building an entire secret version of himself. And what were you going to do with that curiosity? I asked. Take her out a third time? Fourth? See how long you could date 2 women at once? He ran a hand over his face. I made a mistake. No, I said quietly. You made a series of choices. His mouth snapped shut. You downloaded a dating app. You created a profile. You swiped. You matched. You texted her for weeks. You went out with her. Then you did it again. None of that is a mistake. That's intention. His jaw tightened. Can you stop talking to me like I'm a criminal? You've never messed up before? I've never gone looking for someone to replace you, I said. Not once. That hit him harder than anything else I'd said so far. His expression cracked, anger bleeding into fear. You're not seriously thinking about ending this, he said. Not over this. We've been together for 3 years. You ended it, I said. You just did it quietly, in pieces, and hoped I wouldn't notice. He stepped toward me as if proximity could soften the truth. Please, Sloane, just let me explain. We can work through this. No, I said, standing, we can't. His voice rose. You're overreacting. I felt something inside me finally lift its head after months of being pushed down. My own sense of worth, tired of being quiet. You want to know what overreacting is, I said. Calling someone at 2:47 a.m., demanding $300, and throwing a fit when they don't drop everything to fix your mess. Lying to me for weeks, playing house with me while building something else on the side. He opened his mouth to protest, but I didn't let him. You need to leave. He froze. What? You heard me. The lease is in my name. You're not on it. You have until tonight to pack your things. His expression twisted, confusion, disbelief, then something uglier. You can't just kick me out. I can, I said, and I am. This is insane, he snapped. After everything I've done for you. Don't, I warned. Don't rewrite this to make yourself the victim. He threw up his hands. 3 years, Sloane. You're throwing it away. You threw it away when you downloaded that app. He scoffed, shook his head like I was being hysterical. It was 1 date. 2, I corrected. We didn't even sleep together. That's not the bar, I said. The betrayal started long before she ever got in your car. He paced, running his hands through his hair, muttering curses under his breath. This is ridiculous, he said finally. You're going to regret this. You always make things worse than they are. That line, you always make things worse than they are, hit me like déjà vu. Every manipulator I'd ever known had said some version of it. But this time I didn't shrink. I'm done being someone you can lie to, I said. So pack your things. He stared at me, fury simmering beneath the surface. But he knew. He knew something in me had shifted overnight into something he couldn't bargain with. Charm or wear down. Fine, he spat. I'll be gone by 8. He grabbed his jacket, swaying slightly, and stormed into the bedroom to start packing. I didn't watch, I didn't supervise, I didn't explain myself again. I grabbed my keys and left the apartment, my heart pounding, but my steps steady. I spent the day working from a coffee shop, letting the sound of espresso machines and soft chatter drown out the noise of the last 3 years collapsing behind me. At 2 p.m., he texted, Can we talk about this? I didn't respond. At 4 p.m., I don't have anywhere to go. I typed back, You have 4 hours? At 6 p.m., another message. Fine, I'll be gone by 8. When I returned at 8:30, the apartment was half empty. His clothes gone, his shoes gone, his posters gone, his toothbrush gone. The silence was deeper, but cleaner. On the counter lay a folded note. I'm sorry. If you change your mind, call me. I didn't unfold it. I dropped it into the trash. Then I stood in the middle of my living room, the same space where he'd laughed, lied, kissed me, dismissed me, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Breathing room. Not peace, not yet, but space. Real, honest space. The first night without him felt strange. Not painful, just quiet in a way I hadn't realized I'd been craving. No scattered shoes by the door, no half-finished drinks on the counter, no buzzing notifications from his phone lighting up the darkness. Just me, and the steady hum of an apartment returning to its original shape. I slept better than I expected. By Saturday morning, the sun had spilled across the hardwood floors, warm and wide, like it finally had room to stretch. I made coffee in silence, the kind that doesn't need to fight for space around someone else's moods. At 9:14 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I should have let it go to voicemail. I almost did. But something nudged me to answer. Hello? A woman's voice tight with worry. Is this Sloane? I'm Caleb's mother. I close my eyes. Here it comes. She didn't wait for me to respond. What happened? He showed up at my house last night with 2 duffel bags, crying, saying you kicked him out. I let out a slow breath. I ended the relationship. She sucked in a breath. He said it was a misunderstanding, that you two had a fight and you overreacted. Of course he did. The script was predictable. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said. He's been going on dates with someone from a dating app for weeks. Silence. Heavy, stunned silence. He told me you were controlling, that you accused him of cheating all the time. There it was, the narrative he'd already rehearsed. He was cheating, I said calmly. One of the women he was seeing is the one who drove him home last night. She didn't even know he had a girlfriend. More silence, this time sharper. He didn't tell me any of that. I didn't think he would. A long exhale, a mother grieving the son she thought she raised. I'm so sorry, Sloane. Her voice trembled, not with defensiveness, but with disappointment in him. There's no excuse for that. I appreciate you saying that. What will you do now? She asked softly. I'm already doing it, I said, moving on. She drew in a shaky breath. I hope he learned something from this. I doubted it, but I didn't say so. We ended the call, and for a moment I sat very still, letting the relief settle in. I had braced myself for blame, accusations, emotional blackmail, but instead, validation. From someone who didn't owe me any. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Caleb. You told my mom everything? I stared at the text, sharp, accusing, desperate. Not a single word of accountability. Me. She called and asked. I told the truth. Him. Now she's mad at me. Me. That's not my problem. Him. You really won't give me another chance? Me. No. Him. After 3 years. That's it? Me. You ended it when you started dating other people. He didn't reply. A strange calm washed over me, like shutting a door I should have closed months ago. By Monday, the quiet had shifted from unfamiliar to comforting. I rearranged the living room, moved the couch, boxed up things that reminded me of him. Not to erase the past, just to reclaim the space. Then, mid-afternoon, my phone lit up with a call from an unexpected name. Tessa, one of his closest friends. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Sloane, she said the moment I picked up, no greeting. I heard what happened. Let me guess, I said. Caleb told you I overreacted. Oh, he told us plenty, she said. But then I talked to Jamie, who talked to Brianna. My breath caught. Brianna. The girl from the voicemail. And, Tessa continued, it sounds like Caleb left out about 90% of the truth. Her voice held anger. For me, not at me. We tried to be neutral, she said. But cheating, lying, making her drive him home while he was blackout drunk? That's not a misunderstanding, that's a pattern. I blinked. You talked to Brianna? I didn't want to believe it at first, but she showed us screenshots, dates, messages. He told her you were basically broken up. A bitter laugh escaped me. That's news to me. Sloane, her voice softened. I'm sorry. You deserve so much better. I wasn't prepared for how much that meant. After we hung up, another text came through. This one from Caleb's friend, Nolan. You made the right call. He's been acting shady for months. And another. Honestly, you put up with more than any of us thought was fair. And another. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I stared at the names on my phone, stunned. Caleb was losing the narrative, piece by piece. His friends weren't buying the story he tried to sell. They were seeing the real him, the version I had been living with quietly, silently, making excuses for. And then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, but not the same one as his mother. My breath caught. I answered. Hello? A tentative voice replied. Hi, this might be weird, but it's Brianna. A beat of silence stretched between us. My stomach fluttered with something like dread and curiosity tangled together. She continued, I wanted to check on you. My throat tightened. You don't owe me that. I know, she said gently, but I still wanted to. I feel awful about everything, even though I didn't know. I closed my eyes. None of this is your fault. Maybe not, she said, but I still helped someone hurt you, even accidentally. Her remorse was raw, unpolished, completely different from Caleb's practiced apologies. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. What was he like with you before things got bad? I wasn't sure how to answer that. The good parts felt like artifacts now, objects from a museum exhibit titled Things I Thought Were Real. He was charming, I said slowly. Thoughtful sometimes, funny, easy to believe. She exhaled a soft, understanding sigh. Yeah, she murmured. That's exactly how he was with me. Another silence. Sad, but strangely comforting. Two women cross-checking their memories, forming the outline of a truth that had been hidden from both of us. "I'm sorry he lied to you," I said. "And I'm sorry he lied to you," she replied. The symmetry of it broke something open inside me. Then Brianna said something I didn't expect. "If you ever want to talk or grab coffee or just not feel alone in this, I'm around. No pressure." I didn't answer right away, but the offer lingered, warm, sincere, human. "I might take you up on that," I said quietly. And for the first time since everything imploded, I felt something stir beneath the debris of my life. Not grief, not anger. Connection, possibility, a different kind of beginning. Brianna and I met for coffee 3 days later. Not because I needed closure, not because I wanted to dig deeper into Caleb's double life, but because the loneliness hits differently after betrayal. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet ache under the ribs. And knowing someone else had walked through the same shadow with the same man made her feel less like a stranger and more like the only person who truly understood the shape of this particular wound. She spotted me first. She was smaller in person than she sounded on the phone, with a careful smile that wavered at the edges. She lifted her hand in a small wave. "Hey," she said. "Hey." We ordered our drinks and sat by the window. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke, unsure how to start a conversation that existed solely because someone had lied to both of us. Finally, she laughed softly. "I've never had coffee with the girlfriend of the guy who was dating me. Believe me, it's a first for me too." Her smile warmed. We eased into conversation like people walking into cold water. Slowly, but with relief once the initial shock faded. "I kept replaying everything he told me," she admitted, "and I can't believe I didn't see the signs." "You weren't supposed to see them," I said. "He curated what he showed you." "And what he hid," she added. We talked about timelines, words he'd repeated verbatim, compliments recycled in different packaging, his tendency to mirror whoever he was with, like a chameleon made out of charm and deceit. "He told me you were controlling," she said carefully. I sighed. "He told me the women before me were unstable." Her eyes widened. "He said the same thing about his ex-girlfriend, Jasmine." There it was, a pattern so obvious it was embarrassing I hadn't recognized it sooner. "Did he ever talk about his past relationships in detail?" I asked. "Only enough to make him sound like the victim," she said. "Jasmine," he said, "was obsessive and kept tabs on him, but now I'm wondering if she was just noticing things." "Probably," I said. "People don't control what they don't fear losing." And Caleb had feared consequences, not loss. Brianna hesitated. "Do you want to know something weird?" I braced myself. "Sure." "He asked me if I liked men who were ambitious but misunderstood, like he'd practiced the line before saying it." I stared at her. He used to say that about himself all the time, that he worked harder than anyone realized, and that people didn't appreciate him. We exchanged a look, disbelief mixed with the faintest grim amusement. "He's consistent, I'll give him that," she said. We laughed, and it wasn't bitter or forced, just human. Then she lowered her voice. "I talked to one of your mutual friends, the one named Nolan." "Oh?" I sipped my coffee. "What'd he say?" "That Caleb has a habit of overlapping relationships, that he always has a transition period." My chest tightened, but not with surprise. It was more like confirmation. "He's already seeing someone new," I said. "Or he will be soon." Brianna bit her lip. "I guess you heard about the story he's telling people?" I braced myself again. "Which one?" "That you were emotionally abusive and stunted his personal growth." She winced. "I'm sorry. I know that's not true." I huffed a laugh, not shocked, not hurt, just exhausted. "He'd rather rewrite history than take accountability," I said. "And his new girlfriend believes him," Brianna said quietly. "For now." For now. Those two words sat between us like a prediction. A week later, I ran into them. I hadn't planned it, hadn't rehearsed anything. I was just buying cereal on a quiet Thursday evening when I turned the corner and nearly collided with Caleb pushing a cart. His hand was laced with a woman's, younger than me, bright-eyed, with that early relationship shine. She was laughing at something he'd said, her whole face lit with affection. Then she saw me. Her smile faltered. Caleb froze. "Sloan," he said, voice catching in his throat. Hey." His new girlfriend blinked between us. "Is this?" He pulled his hand from hers, too slow to seem innocent. "This is nobody." Nobody. 3 years, 18 months living together, sharing bills, sharing holidays, sharing a life, and now I was nobody. I didn't flinch. "Actually," I said calmly, "I'm his ex, the one he lived with until 2 weeks ago." Her face changed instantly, confusion sharpening into alarm. "Wait," she said, turning to him. "You said your ex was out of state." Caleb shot me a warning glare, the kind he used when he wanted me to stay quiet to protect him. "I didn't." "He also has an active dating app profile," I added, "and a habit of calling women at 3 in the morning demanding money when his plans fall apart." The girlfriend's eyes widened. "Caleb, is that true?" He stumbled over the words. "She's being dramatic." But his girlfriend wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at me, and she saw no drama, only clarity. I stepped back, offering her a small, sincere nod. "Good luck," I said. "Just be careful." And then I walked away, leaving him to scramble for explanations as reality closed in on him. I didn't turn back, but I heard her say sharply, "You lied again." 2 days later, Nolan texted me. He dumped him. Didn't take long. Then, "You dodged a grenade." I believed him. Because by then, I wasn't just healing, I was rebuilding. And the people who'd circled Caleb for years were finally seeing him through the same lens I'd been forced to look through. Brianna and I met again for coffee that week, then dinner, then a walk through the park because it felt good to talk to someone who had no reason to lie to me. We weren't friends because of Caleb. We were friends in spite of him. And slowly, piece by piece, the narrative shifted from what he had done to me to what I was becoming without him. 4 months later, my apartment didn't feel like a hollowed-out version of a shared life anymore. It felt mine. The couch had been moved. New curtains, plants I actually remembered to water, a workspace that wasn't crammed into a corner to make room for someone else's gaming setup. I didn't realize how much space Caleb had taken up until he wasn't there to take it anymore. People talk about heartbreak like it's loud, crying on the bathroom floor, smashing picture frames, drowning in wine and sad playlists. But mine wasn't loud. It was quiet, orderly, a slow rebuilding, like repairing a cracked foundation one careful hour at a time. I'd stopped compulsively checking my phone, stopped replaying conversations, stopped asking myself what I missed, what I should have noticed sooner, what I could have done differently. The truth was simple and brutal. I did notice. My instincts screamed. I just loved him more than I trusted myself. Never again. Thursday evenings became my favorite. A tiny ritual of something new, joining a group that played pickup basketball at the community court. Something I'd never done before, and something I never would have tried during the relationship. Caleb hated it when I did anything he wasn't part of. He called it quality time, but it was really surveillance disguised as affection. Now I stretched on the sidelines, laughing at myself, at how uncoordinated I was, at how little any of that mattered. Nolan, one of Caleb's old friends, who'd quietly taken my side, passed me the ball. "You want to shoot, or you want me to pretend to guard you?" "Pretend to guard," I said. "Any attempt at real defense, and I'm going home with a twisted ankle." He snorted. "Deal." I took a shot. It bounced off the rim, hard. "Progress," he said. "Really?" "No, but you didn't hit anyone, so that's something." I laughed, the sound bright and real in my chest. Later, we got drinks with the group. People who didn't know me as part of a couple, who didn't ask about my past, who treated me as someone whole all on her own. Brianna came sometimes too. The first time she joined, we exchanged a small, knowing look. Two survivors who had walked out of the same fire without burning each other. She told me she was dating someone now, someone kind, someone consistent, someone who didn't use charm like a weapon. I was happy for her, genuinely. "Are you seeing anyone?" she asked one night. "Not really," I said. "Just living, slowly." Her smile was soft. "That counts as something too." And it did. By month 4, the nightmare version of Caleb, the one who filled my phone with lies, accusations, guilt, and midnight demands, had become a distant ripple. Mutual friends occasionally updated me without meaning to. "He's on his 3rd girlfriend since you two broke up. People are starting to notice the pattern. He says you were emotionally unstable. No one believes him anymore." Once someone even added, "Honestly, you were the best thing that ever happened to him. He just didn't know what to do with someone who didn't worship him." But the updates didn't sting. They didn't land anywhere painful. They felt like weather reports from a city I no longer lived in. The real turning point came one evening when I found myself standing by the kitchen counter making tea when my phone buzzed. Not from him. He'd been blocked for months. Not from anyone related to that chapter. Just a simple message from a friend. "You free this weekend? Come hiking with us." And I said yes, without hesitation, without excuses. It sounds small. It wasn't. Because 4 months earlier, I couldn't imagine doing anything spontaneous. 4 months earlier, my world revolved around managing someone else's moods, habits, lies, Disappearances, demands. 4 months earlier, I would have waited for permission, validation, or reassurance that I wasn't overstepping. Now, I packed a backpack, bought new hiking shoes, showed up. The trail was steep, but the air was clean. Birds, wind, sunlight through leaves. At the overlook, someone asked, "Do you ever miss him?" And the answer, the real, unfiltered, unhesitating answer, came easily. No. They nodded, satisfied. But I wasn't done. "I don't miss the version of him I created in my mind," I said. "The one I thought he could be. The one he pretended to be. I only miss the girl I used to be. The one who assumed people told the truth unless given a reason not to." Silence. Then a quiet, understanding murmur. Walking back down the trail, I replayed that last 2:47 a.m. phone call, the moment everything shifted. People had asked if I regretted not sending the money. Not even for a second. Because that night, something inside me finally snapped into alignment. He had spent weeks layering lies, overlapping affections, shopping for replacements while still coming home to my bed. And when his double life collided with reality, he still expected me to save him. But I wasn't a safety net. I wasn't a backup plan. I wasn't furniture he could sit in until something newer caught his eye. That night, when he demanded money, when his lie cracked open just wide enough for me to see through it, I chose something radical. Myself. I chose self-respect over chaos, truth over denial, silence over drama, closure over clinging. People can call it harsh, cold, unforgiving. I call it growing a backbone. A quiet one, a steady one, the kind that lets you walk away without looking back. Next month, my lease ends. I'm thinking of moving, a fresh place, closer to work, closer to the park where I run now, closer to the version of myself I'm still discovering. A place with no ghosts of him, just room for new chapters. And no 2:47 a.m. phone calls ever again.